Daniel Harper learned early how to look calm. He grew up in a small town in Washington state, in a house where voices were never raised but hearts slowly closed. His parents did not fight. They simply stopped talking. Meals were quiet. Evenings were quiet. Love did not explode in that house. It faded. Daniel watched it happen year by year, and without knowing it, he learned a lesson that stayed with him for life. Love leaves. By the time he was a teenager, he had already decided something deep inside. He would never let himself need anyone. Too much needing felt risky. Caring felt like standing on thin ice. He focused on school, on drawing, on anything that kept his mind busy. When friends talked about crushes and heartbreak, Daniel listened but stayed distant. He smiled, joked, and acted normal, but his heart stayed guarded as an adult. Daniel moved to Oregon and built a stable life. He had a decent job as a graphic designer, a clean apartment, and a quiet routine. People liked him. He was kind, reliable, and easy to work with. On the surface, his life looked peaceful. Inside, it was controlled. He avoided anything that could shake him. Dating happened, but never deeply. He met women through friends or work events. He went on dinners, shared laughs, and even felt sparks at times. But the moment things leaned toward seriousness, he pulled back. He found reasons. The timing was wrong. The connection wasn't strong enough. He wasn't ready. Excuses sounded logical even to him. But the truth was simple and heavy. He was afraid. Daniel never called it fear. He called it being careful. He told himself he valued independence. He said he liked his quiet life. And in some ways, it was true. But late at night, when the apartment felt too still, he wondered what it would be like to let someone truly know him. That thought always came with a tight feeling in his chest. So he pushed it away. Everything began to change on an ordinary Monday morning. The office was buzzing with soft noise when Daniel arrived. Emails, coffee cups, keyboards clicking. Then, the manager called a short meeting to introduce a new team member. She stood near the window, light falling across her face, holding a notebook close to her chest. "This is Emily Carter," the manager said. "She just moved from Toronto and will be working with us on client branding." Emily smiled, not wide, or forced, but calm and open. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "I'm really happy to be here," she said. Daniel felt it then, a quiet pull. Not excitement, not desire recognition. Something about her presence made the room feel more awake. It bothered him. He told himself it meant nothing. Over the next few days, Emily settled in quickly. She learned names fast. She asked questions without sounding unsure. She worked hard but didn't rush. Daniel noticed small things he didn't want to notice. How she paused before speaking. How she laughed softly at her own mistakes. How she thanked people sincerely. They worked on the same project by the end of the week at first. Their conversations stayed professional. Colors, layouts, deadlines. Emily listened closely when Daniel explained ideas. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush to prove herself. That alone felt different. One afternoon, as they reviewed drafts, Emily looked up from her screen. "You think carefully before you speak," she said. Daniel shrugged. "I guess. I like that," she added. "It feels honest." The comment stayed with him longer than it should have. Days turned into weeks. Their talks grew longer still. Simple, but more personal. Emily mentioned her move, how she wanted a fresh start. Daniel shared small details about his childhood without going deep. He noticed how easy it felt to talk to her, and that scared him more than anything. He began to pull back. He answered emails shorter. He avoided shared lunches. He told himself he was busy. Emily noticed, but she didn't push. She remained kind. Steady, the same as before. That made it worse. If she had reacted strongly, Daniel could have justified his distance. But she didn't. Single quotes to dot. One evening, a tight deadline kept them late at the office. Most of the lights were off. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The quiet felt heavy but not uncomfortable. They worked side by side in silence for a while. Then Emily spoke. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Daniel nodded, cautious. "Do you ever feel like you're holding back from life?" she asked. "Not because you don't want more, but because you're afraid of what more might cost." The question landed hard. Daniel stared at his screen. Words stuck. He thought of his parents at that quiet table. He thought of every moment he stepped away from something that mattered. "Yeah," he finally said. "I do." Emily leaned back in her chair. "I was in a long relationship back in Canada," she said. "It didn't end badly. It just slowly stopped being real. We tried to fix it, but love can't survive on effort alone." Daniel listened closely. When it ended, she continued, "I kept thinking maybe I failed because I cared too much. But now I think caring was the brave part." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice was quiet. "I've been afraid my whole life," he said. "Afraid that even if I give my best, it won't be enough, or it will end anyway." Emily looked at him with calm understanding. "Fear doesn't mean you're weak," she said. "Sometimes it just means you've been hurt before." They didn't say much after that. But something had shifted. That night, Daniel walked home through the rain, his thoughts loud. He realized something that unsettled him deeply. Emily hadn't tried to change him. She hadn't promised anything. She had simply seen him. And instead of running, part of him wanted to stay. Over the next few days, Daniel felt different. He noticed colors more. Music sounded richer. He caught himself smiling for no reason. The fear was still there, but it was no longer quiet. It was arguing with something new inside him. Hope. He tried to ignore it. He focused on work. He avoided thinking about Emily. But when she smiled at him across the room, his defenses weakened. When she asked how his weekend was, he wanted to tell her the truth instead of a safe answer. One afternoon, as they walked out together, Emily stopped near the door. "I'm glad we talked the other night," she said. "Whatever happens, I'm glad we were honest." Daniel nodded. He wanted to say more. He wanted to tell her that she had stirred something he thought was gone forever. But the words stayed inside him. As Emily walked away, Daniel stood still for a moment. He felt the familiar urge to retreat, to close the door before it opened too wide. But this time, something was different. For the first time, the fear didn't feel like safety. It felt like a question waiting to be answered. Daniel tried to return to normal after that evening, but normal no longer fit him. The days felt sharper, brighter, as if something inside him had been turned on. He noticed time more clearly. Mornings moved faster, evenings felt longer. Every time he thought of Emily, his chest filled with both warmth and fear. He kept telling himself to slow down, reminded himself that feelings could mislead. Still, he found excuses to be near her. He offered help on small tasks, stayed longer at work when he knew she would be there. None of it felt forced. It felt natural, and that made him nervous. Emily didn't change how she treated him. She remained calm, thoughtful, and present. She never rushed conversations or pushed for closeness. She listened when he spoke and gave him space when he went quiet. Daniel began to realize that she wasn't trying to pull him toward anything. She was simply walking forward and inviting him to decide for himself. One Friday afternoon, Emily stopped by his desk. "I'm thinking of taking a short trip tomorrow," she said. "There's a lake town a few hours away. Quiet, peaceful. Would you like to come?" The question hung between them. Daniel felt the fear rise instantly. His mind rushed ahead, listing reasons to say no. It could mean something. It could lead to expectations. It could end in disappointment. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I'm not great with sudden plans." Emily nodded, accepting his answer without pressure. "That's okay. I thought I'd ask." She turned to leave, then paused. "No matter what you decide, I hope you have a good weekend." As she walked away, Daniel felt a sharp pull inside. He realized something important in that moment, saying, no wasn't protecting him from pain. 'Twas protecting him from life. That night, he barely slept. His thoughts moved fast, looping through memories and fears. He remembered moments he avoided, chances he let pass. He remembered sitting alone in quiet rooms, telling himself he was fine. He asked himself a hard question. What if the regret of never trying was worse than the pain of failing? By morning, the answer felt clear. Daniel sent Emily a message. If the offer still stands, he wrote, I'd like to come. Her reply came quickly. I'm glad, she said. I'll pick you up at 9. The drive was calm. Music played softly. The road stretched ahead, open and quiet. They talked, easily, about small things at first. Favorite books, childhood memories, places they wanted to see. Daniel found himself speaking more freely than usual. He didn't plan it. The words just came. Emily shared stories of her life in Canada. Long winters, the city lights. The relationship she once thought would last forever. I stayed longer than I should have, she said. Not because it was good, but because I was afraid of starting over. Daniel nodded. He understood that fear too well. The town by the lake was small and peaceful. Water reflected the sky like glass. The air felt clean. They walked along the shore, slow and quiet. No rush. No expectations. Daniel felt something inside him shift again. He wasn't performing. Wasn't hiding. He was simply there. They stopped near the water. Emily looked out across the lake. I used to believe love should feel safe all the time, she said. But now I think it's okay if it feels a little scary. That just means it matters. Daniel's heart raced. The fear returned, loud and demanding. It told him to stay quiet, to stay guarded, to step back before he lost control. But another voice spoke to quieter, steadier. This is the moment. Daniel took a breath. I've spent my whole life avoiding this feeling, he said. I thought fear meant danger, but now I think fear might mean I'm standing close to something real. Emily turned toward him. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush him. I don't know where this leads, Daniel continued. I don't know if it lasts. But I know that walking away now would hurt more than trying. For a moment, the world felt still. Emily reached out her hand slowly, giving him time to pull back if he wanted. Daniel didn't pull away. He took her hand, and the fear didn't disappear, but it softened. It lost its power. They stood there, quietly, connected not by promises, but by choice. The drive back felt different. Lighter, they didn't talk much. They didn't need to. The silence was comfortable, shared. In the weeks that followed, Daniel changed in ways even he didn't fully understand. He laughed more. He slept better. He spoke honestly even when it felt risky. Emily became part of his life naturally, without force or pressure. They took things slow. They learned each other's habits. They disagreed gently. They shared quiet moments and meaningful ones. There were no grand declarations, no dramatic scenes, just two people choosing presence over fear again and again. Daniel still had moments of doubt. Some nights, the old fear returned, whispering that endings were inevitable. But now, he didn't let those thoughts control him. He had learned something important. Love was not a promise of safety. It was a choice to show up. One evening, as they sat together watching the city lights, Emily leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. Daniel felt a calm he had never known before. Not certainty. Not perfection. Peace. He realized then that the thing he feared his whole life was not love itself. It was the risk of being seen. And when that happened, everything changed.